Hello and welcome to Tech for Non-Techies, the only podcast that demystifies the fast-growing technology sector. I'm your host, Sophia Matveeva, Chicago-based MBA and tech entrepreneur. My aim here is to give you the skills, knowledge and confidence to find opportunities in the tech sector, whether that's through founding a company, getting a dream job, or bringing a fresh perspective to your work. Hello, smart people. In this episode, we are going to discuss how to hire and work with user experience designers. And we've actually got two people giving you advice here. We've got Jasper Squire, who works at a design agency, and we've got Ben West, who works on the product management side. This means that you have the product manager and the designer perspective. And for those of you who've been listening for a while, you will know that in order to go from idea to live app, you need to have designers, and you either need to be doing the product management yourself or you need to work with a product manager. So it's really good to have these two different perspectives on this episode together, because sometimes they're actually at war with each other, and then you have to figure out when the product managers have to get their way and when the designers have to get their way. So this is a super useful session. We had the full live masterclass on Tech for Non-Techies, and this is an excerpt. Hope you enjoy listening.
So I can see we've got our first few people joining. Okay, so what we are going to do today, everybody, is we are going to talk about user experience design. It's a topic I am very fond of because it's a topic that I made so many mistakes with. Because at the beginning, when I was first transitioning into tech, I didn't know that designers were an important part of actually making a product. Now, I would argue that they are probably the most important, or definitely at least as important as the developers. So I think that actually this mistake is what a lot of non-technical founders or innovators, if there's a corporate innovation effort, I'll be curious to hear what you guys think. There's this emphasis on let's get developers and then they will save us, and nobody actually does any design or knows what design is. So we are going to learn from you about what you do, what user experience design is, how you work with clients, so people can then actually take that knowledge and understand what to expect of a UX agency, and how to hire a UX agency, how to know what's right for them. And audience, if you just write your questions into the chat box, I will then unmute you, and then you can ask your questions from and get some proper feedback from interesting people who know what they're talking about, which is very rare in our world. Okay, so gentlemen, please tell us who you are. So shall we start with Jasper? What do you do? Who are you?
Yeah, hi, Sophia. Thanks for that. Yes, my name's Jasper Squire. I'm the managing director of a creative tech company called Intergalactic. We are based in London and Vancouver and Sydney. Been running for about 16 years and work across a number of sectors, from real estate marketing, where the company kind of was originally kind of specializing in, and more recent in last 5 years with enterprise companies. So we're lucky enough to work with people like Microsoft, Cisco, SAP, and we basically work with our clients to solve their challenges that they have and come up with creative solutions to address those challenges. And we have the in-house teams to design and build those experiences. So we kind of go from the full journey of a digital project. And over the last 9 months with COVID, we've kind of pivoted quite a lot into virtual events. So we've recently built our own product called Event XR, and fortunately we're kind of seeing our older client base getting back to doing what they do, and that's creating great digital experiences.
Exciting. So, Ben, your turn. Tell us all about you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ben West. I'm the co-founder of EventBase. And we're a product company that builds mobile apps for attendees to use at very large events. And when you go to these events, you need to be able to navigate your way through the content, through the physical space, be able to plan your day. So attendees use this as sort of a personal concierge. So we've provided the official apps for 3 Olympics. It's actually how Jasper and I met. We're both working on the London 2012 Olympic Games. We do the official app for South by Southwest, Comic-Con, Sundance Film Festival, CES, and a number of very large enterprises, including Microsoft and Cisco, Dell, a number of others. So that app is a product which is different from the agency side that Jasper is speaking about. And I think today we're going to talk a little bit about that iterative process of how you develop a product that can be used in the wild, and the things that we've learned along the way. Eventbase is 11 years old, and we certainly have learned a lot during that time building these apps for these very large organizations that have very high expectations of how things will perform.
Sometimes there is, or actually all the time, there is this tension between product management and design, in a way that, the product managers, we're looking at the money and all of this stuff about, behavior, and let's talk to these 5 people in depth and kind of watch them in the wild. I'm literally sitting there and thinking, like, hurry up, this is costing me money. But at the same time, if you don't allow designers to kind of do the anthropological stuff, then you're going to waste money further down the line. So does that tension sound familiar to you? And if it does, how do you solve it?
Yeah, the tension is definitely there, and it's a good thing. It's that dichotomy. It's sort of using 2 different alloys to forge a stronger sword. You're right. You can lose a lot of money by barreling into things without proper design, and really thinking through those problems. And if you think about, so my wife's an interior designer, so when we're driving around, she's always very critical of the homes, and you can spot the home that was designed by the builder. It has a roof, but maybe things don't really click quite right. And you can look at a house and that one was architected. And that's really the difference when you're looking at the difference between barreling into things with a developer. And I used to be a developer, so I could say this without feeling shame. When you barrel in, you're excited as a developer, you start building bits and pieces. You're not necessarily looking at the holistic overall picture. And when an architect comes to a home, they think about what the requirements are, what is the lot like, where does the light fall, and what are the requirements of the homeowner, the neighborhood, the context of the neighborhood. So in software, when you bring design to the picture, they're going to see the forest and the trees. They're going to map out things so that the builder can come in and build an incredible home within the confines of what the architect has laid out. And it's a similar thing between project managers or product managers and the designers. Yes, you want to get it done. The homeowners want to move in, start using the software. But if you don't design it appropriately, once the homeowners move in, they're going to find janky things like doors open up into drawers, and you can't actually use the home to its fullest potential. So that tension is good, and your product managers and project managers and your designers should work in concert and have frequent touch points where they get aligned.
That's such a good analogy. I love the house analogy, and I would love to be in a car with your wife, just looking around houses. And well done, you married well. You must live in an amazing home. So, in terms,
I certainly married better than she did.
In terms of how you actually work with clients, so Jasper, I would love to hear about maybe a specific client, or you don't have to name names, but just what happens. So you get a client says, I want digital transformation in general, or do they say, we want to put our product into an app? Like, what kind of essentially first request do you get, and then what do you do with it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're quite a high touch kind of organization. So we'll kind of work in terms of the prospect and lead generation phase. You know, it's a long-term engagement. So we know quite a lot about our, the prospect, our clients' business before we even kind of really get to that point of seeing a project come through. But often, you know, we would have had many conversations about, you know, building that relationship and understanding their challenges. We do get creative briefs sometimes from clients, which is nice, but other times we don't. And it's those kind of times where the consultation piece really kicks in, and that's when we, you know, what we call a discovery phase. That's, you know, how we block 2 to 3 weeks of time with our kind of creative director, our strategic team, and the UX team, and that group of people will help really forge what would be the brief if the client hasn't come to us with it. So those are the two main ways we engage. If there's a client brief, it's great. We kind of know what we're delivering, often at a high level. So then it's up to us to kind of flesh out the detail of the different, you know, the objectives of the experience, the functionality, all the deliverables, and obviously the kind of cost and scope associated to that. Every project's a bit different, to be honest. So, you know, we're used to kind of being that flexible. I think in agency world, you have to be. We work with so many different types of clients that we have to react to their businesses and work kind of as a part of their team as well. We've got a client at the moment who they are having to restart a project that they went straight into dev with an offshore option last year, and
without design.
Pardon?
Without any design.
Yeah, so she had an idea. Well, that's it. She learned that she can't do it. And
no, because I tried to do that, and I then fell flat.
She unfortunately, you know, as an entrepreneur herself, and you know, in the kind of education sector, she has a nice idea, but engaged directly with a development team and was, you know, didn't quite get what she needed. So, you know, we're now kind of working with her to take her through the journey of setting that project up. It's a very complex app, and I think she went through, you know, some quite stressful months to try and get to where she got to with that other company. But I think it's important to spend time up front. You know, don't rush into things. Give thinking time its space, because you can't always rush these things. And obviously, yes, budget has to be looked at and conserved and carefully managed, but equally, you know, just rushing to a quick solution that will cost more in the long term.
Literally, if anybody, for the people who are listening or watching, if you don't remember anything I ever tell you, just remember just one thing: do not hire developers before you hire designers. I have done this. It is so expensive. And if you have investors, you have to explain to them that you have done this thing, which is a very stupid thing to do. And I have had to make this explanation to very smart people who trusted me with their money. It is not a good feeling. I do not want that for anybody else. So, we have this webinar so they can watch it. All right. So let's talk about what you actually need from designers before you start working with developers. And Ben, maybe you could take this one because you understand the design side and you understand the developer side. So like if I'm a non-technical founder and I'm going to you guys and I say I need to go to developers, but I go to you first, what are going to be the deliverables that you will give me?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you'd want to do with your designer, if you're a founder or product manager or project manager, is have alignment. So there's going to be a lot of conversations to make sure you're on the same page and crystal clear on what your goals are, because everyone brings their own biases to the table. And if you say, I want to build a shopping cart, Well, that could mean many different things to different people. So make sure that you have a conversation with the designer, clearly articulate and document what your goals are. What do you want this thing or this suite of things to do? And then also articulating who for. So who are your key personas that are going to use this tool that you are building? And that's actually something you work out. You give them a name. You might have multiple personas. That way you can refer to them. How is Jane going to move through this flow? How is Steve going to use the tool? You articulate some of those persona requirements, and through that conversation, you get a better picture of what your goals are. And that's really important because you need to enter into that process hollow and consume information along the way. And so a good designer is going to sit down and listen to what the problems are around your personas. What about your industry? Are there certain regulatory issues that need to be considered? Are there accessibility issues that need to be adhered to? Make sure that they get all of that information. Next thing they're going to
here in terms of the user persona, when you are talking about a specific person or a section of the population, I just want to clarify. I'm assuming that you're talking about a niche, so not people who are 20 to 30 living in the UK, but something like how granular should we go?
Yeah, I think you want to focus on the key personas initially. So for us at the events, we might focus on 3 types of users that use the event in different ways. There might be I guess you could call them like the sprinters, people that are going to come into the event, boom, 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 want to see a bunch of things, check off all the items. There might be the passionate aficionados. They're going to really sink their teeth into every single aspect. They want more information. They want to be able to connect with subject matter experts. They're going to live and breathe that event. And then you're probably going to have a persona that's a little bit in between. Those might be 3 personas. We would give a name to each of them and go, what are the key problems that user does? What's the user journey? What are the key touch points and problems that they have that we'll need to solve? You could define
that. You talked about behavior rather than demographics. So you were talking because somebody who is a massive aficionado. So basically, that's me in a museum. When I'm in a museum and there's a digital guide, I listen to everything. I press all the buttons. I hog up the space with the paintings. So if you ever do something in the Louvre, then I'm your girl. You can do your product testing with me. But essentially, that person, I think they're more likely to be 60, and then there's me. But in general, it goes across age and across gender as long as the interest is the same. Is that the way you suggest we approach personas when we go to a designer?
I would think that it's more around key problems and touch points rather than age specifically. There are obviously exceptions to that. If you're designing an app to be used by patients in a care home, you're going to have to really focus on some of the accessibility issues around legibility, the design patterns you might be able to leverage for festival targeting. People in their 20s can leverage the latest and greatest design patterns from Android and iOS, whereas something that's going to be used by a slower adopting area of the market, you maybe can't leverage the same design patterns such as press and hold and swipe that they might be used to. So I say the answer, I guess, sort of depends on what the defining characteristics of that stakeholder are. Ultimately, if you're designing a shopping cart store, hello?
Oh, I just lost sound for a minute, but sorry, now we're back. So you were saying, ultimately, if you're designing a
shopping cart for a grocery store, everybody's going to be buying food. So think about the different types of people that are going to be working through that. The people that are the people that plan 2 weeks of meals in advance versus the people that shop quite iteratively. Those are maybe the 2 user types that you want to focus on rather than age specifically.
Interesting. So then I think about these kind of user types and I think about the problems then that they might have. And then I go to a designer. So I go to Jasper and I say, okay, these are the problems. Do I have a features list that I want, or is that something that you guys do?
Yeah, well, first off, I would say that I wouldn't do that and then go to the designer. I would develop that in conjunction with the user experience designer, because they will help you bring their expertise to that process. And so if you're going to hire someone, might as well use their expertise. So, leverage them. And then you want to work with them to articulate clearly measurable goals. So we want them to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And from that will come a lot of your features. If you just design for features, you're going to end up with something that has 80% of the features being used 20% of the time, and vice versa. A really good user experience designer can help with an economy of software development, because they'll be focusing on the key measurable objectives, and that efficiency should be part of the UX design, because you don't want to over design something. So designing for measurability allows you to understand the efficacy of what you have built, and then do A/B testing, which is where you test out more than one design or more than one way of solving a problem. And because you're measuring it in terms of people got through this quicker, or they spent more time here because you wanted them to. And if you measure those, you can actually use data to drive the outcome of which is the better design. So that is a collaborative process. And I wouldn't start necessarily with features, start with the problems.
Wasn't that just so super useful? I loved hearing both of those perspectives. The full session is available to Tech for Non-Techies members. If you want to become a member, then just go to techfornontechies.co and check that out. But I've also got another really useful thing for you if you're wondering about how to hire your product team. I've written an ebook on the topic, and it is called How to Hire Your Product Team and Go From Idea to App, the Non-Technical Founder's Guide. In this book, I actually go through a list of product studios that non-technical founders who've been on Tech for Non-Techies have recommended. I give you some budgets for prototypes and minimum viable product and market testing. I also give you advice on what to do if you don't have a technical co-founder, because let's face it, most non-technical founders, especially at the start, do not have a CTO. And then I go through the differences between development shops, product studios, and in-house development teams. If all of this sounds like gobbledygook, but you know you need to hire some people to help you go from idea to live product, get this ebook, and then you'll feel much calmer and you'll have a real action plan for what to do. The link to the ebook is in the show notes. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day. I'll speak to you next week.